Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post. I am Ghadi Francis coming to you from the heart of Beirut, Lebanon. And this is WION's weekly show where we bring you all things new from the world's most volatile region. A 12-day war ended between Iran and Israel, but both sides are claiming victory. Regardless of that, the strategic shockwaves of this war is still being felt in the region. On the other hand, will the 21-month war in Gaza end? And miles away in Turkey, a political storm is brewing. All this is lined up, but first, let's take a look at the headlines. A week after the 12th-day war has gone silent, each side is nursing its wounds. Each side is claiming victory. Iran and Israel both unleashed their full capacity in this recent war. Drones, missiles, planes, everything was involved. America was involved. Iran wasn't broken. But this war shifted the region, changed the energy around, but it did not end with one clear winner. We tell you more.
The opening salvo was pure shock and awe. Israeli jets tore through Iranian skies, striking deep at nuclear facilities, missile bases and the homes of top commanders and nuclear scientists. Iran's response was swift and brutal. Waves of ballistic missiles, some carrying massive warheads, crashed through Israel's air defenses, reducing apartment blocks to rubble and sending shockwaves through the heart of Tel Aviv. Iran unleashed Operation True Promise 3 and launched multiple waves of missiles which breached the famed Iron Dome, an unprecedented blow to Israel's sense of invincibility. Yet, Israel claims victory.
Israel took action in order to prevent Iran from being a country with nuclear weapons, most dangerous regime on earth, with the most dangerous weapon on earth.
These damaged buildings, entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble, shows the brute force of Iranian weaponry. The cost is staggering for Israel. The war's total bill likely to reach $12 billion. The conflict ended in a ceasefire on 24th June. Despite the truce, the damage to people's lives and feelings is clear everywhere on the streets of Tehran.
I don't know why Israel attacked here. This isn't a military facility. It's just a residential building. All the floors are either private homes or small office spaces.
We are alive and well, so thank God for that. At least we humbled America. That alone means something. May God damn them, those who caused this war.
Israel's assault was equally ferocious. The IDF's operation, Rising Lion, flattened key IRGC bases, wiped out missile silos, and killed senior Iranian commanders. Iran's economy took a massive hit. with oil exports disrupted and the rial plunging to historic lows. Both sides now scramble to rebuild. Israel is racing to replenish its depleted Arrow 3 interceptors, while Iran is vowing to triple missile production by the year's end and is working quickly to repair the damage to its nuclear sites.
After it was taken by the IDF's surprise attack, Tehran unleashed its fury. The missiles were unexpected. Regardless of the fact that the missiles hit and they hit hard, they were able also to hit the nerve cells and the center of the Israeli technological supremacy. We tell you more.
The skies over Israel were lit up last month for 12 days. Iranian missiles shattered the silence of the night sky. Just hours after Israeli F-35s pummeled several Iranian targets, Tehran unleashed a chilling counterstrike. But this was no ordinary retaliation. It was precision-engineered vengeance coordinated deep inside Iran's most classified military corridors. Iranian ballistic missiles equipped with high-speed evasive maneuvers and electro-optical targeting bypassed Israel's Iron Dome, Arrow and David Sling defense systems, slamming into strategic infrastructure at speeds of over 5 times the speed of sound. Israel's Weizmann Institute of Science, a global symbol of Israeli innovation, was struck, sending shockwaves through the scientific community.
This building behind me and next to me says everything. This is the world-renowned Weizmann Institute, where the most advanced cutting-edge research is done for human biology, medical research, genetic research, smashed by this rocket from this evil regime, by this missile, with a ton of payload to destroy human progress.
Close behind, the Gaza missile, known for its extended range and ability to carry a heavier warhead, pierced deeper, with intelligence suggesting a devastating impact near the heavily fortified Mossad headquarters. While official confirmation is scarce, the very possibility of such a hit on the nerve center of Israel's formidable intelligence agency underscores Iran's intent to cripple its adversary's operational capacity and psychological resilience. The third and most terrifying component of Iran's assault came with the Sejil missile, a solid propellant, medium-range ballistic missile renowned for its rapid launch capability and high speed, making interception extraordinarily difficult. While its specific target in this wave remains cloaked in the fog of war, its deployment signifies Iran's firepower, which overwhelmed Israeli air defenses. This unprecedented salvo was a direct response to Israel's own aggressive military actions, which saw Israeli jets pound Iranian nuclear sites and military installations with pinpoint accuracy. The exchange laid bare a brutal truth. Both nations have delivered devastating blows that promised an even more ferocious next round.
After 21 months of ongoing devastating war on Gaza, talks about the ceasefire are gaining momentum again. Now the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is facing pressure to make a deal with Hamas, and Hamas needs assurance that the war would actually end. Will the Gaza Strip finally see some respite? Will these talks reach somewhere good? The next report brings you details.
Efforts to secure a temporary ceasefire in the war-ravaged Gaza Strip appear to be making headway. Reports indicate that Hamas may back a US-brokered proposal that would see a 60-day halt in fighting and a staggered release of 28 hostages. Under the proposed framework, Hamas would release 10 living hostages and 18 deceased in exchange for a partial Israeli withdrawal, more humanitarian aid, and the release of Palestinian prisoners. Hamas has agreed to avoid public parades of hostage releases, a stark shift from earlier truce that drew criticism from Israel and the United Nations. The Israeli side, however, remains cautious. According to reports, while the deal may include a pause in military operations, officials insist they are not committing to ending the war. A point of contention as Hamas continues to demand a full and permanent cessation. Mediators from Egypt and Qatar, along with the US, are providing assurances that fighting will not resume as long as negotiations continue. Taking to social media platform Truth Social on Wednesday, Trump claimed Israel had agreed to the necessary conditions to finalize a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. The US president added that Washington would work with all the parties to end the war. The plan comes amid increasing pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire, especially ahead of his planned meeting with President Trump in Washington next week. But even as ceasefire talks gain traction, the human toll in Gaza continues to climb. Israeli strikes in Gaza have killed more than 57,000 Palestinians, with over 130,000 others injured since the war erupted on October the 7th in 2023. Increasingly, reports of Israeli troops firing on civilians at aid distribution sites are coming under the spotlight. According to Israeli media Haaretz, Israeli soldiers in Gaza said the army had deliberately fired at Palestinians near aid distribution sites over the past month. Soldiers revealed that commanders ordered troops to shoot at crowds to drive them away or disperse them, even when it was clear that they posed no threat. In a separate incident on Monday, at least 24 people were killed when an Israeli airstrike hit a seafront cafe in the Gaza city, a popular spot for journalists, activists, and locals. Israeli military reportedly used a 500-pound bomb to attack, which, according to experts, could amount to a war crime under international law. The IDF claims that it targeted Hamas operatives, but so far has not named any of them. As diplomats push for a breakthrough, the Gaza Strip remains on edge, flattened and buried under rubble. Palestinians hope that this latest round of talks may bring fragile peace to a deeply scarred land.
This war has made us experience a life that we had never experienced before. Honestly, never in my life before. We have come to crave everything. The kids are craving everything from toys to clothes to food, that loaf of bread that we need.
The clock is ticking as Hamas is expected to submit a formal response to the ceasefire framework soon. More than 2.3 million Palestinians are waiting with bated breath, hoping that Israel and Hamas ink a ceasefire deal soon.
It's been 100 days since Ekrem İmamoğlu, the mayor of Istanbul, was arrested. Now the state in Turkey says it is over corruption charges. But the opposition says it's just another crackdown by Recep Tayyip Erdogan over the opposition figures. Now protests gained momentum in Turkey. They're not stepping down. It's not about one person, people say. It's about the fear for the democracy in the country. This report explains more about the situation in Turkey.
The scenes were unmistakably familiar. Thousands of protesters, including opposition leaders, pouring onto the streets of several cities in Turkey. Marking 100 days since the arrest of Ekrem İmamoğlu, Istanbul's elected mayor and a rising opposition figure. In Istanbul, riot police moved in to break up the gatherings using pepper spray, pushing back protesters and detaining those who refused to leave. But the crowd stood firm, chanting for justice, democracy, and the release of their mayor. İmamoğlu, who led the main opposition party, the Republican People's Party or CHP, to historic wins in local elections, was detained on corruption charges, which he vehemently denies. Since his jailing, his support has only grown, fueled by widespread belief that the case against him is politically motivated.
And at the forefront of this coup is a leader, a junta leader, the one who in the past was elected and empowered as the President of the Republic by the people, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, is no longer the President but the junta leader, the President.
To his supporters, İmamoğlu is not just a mayor. He is a symbol of hope, modernization, and an alternative to 2 decades of AK party rule under President Erdogan. In recent months, the government has detained dozens of opposition figures across different cities, including several CHP mayors. The latest round of arrests came in Izmir on Tuesday, where 157 people, including former Mayor Tunç Soyer and senior bureaucrats, were taken into custody in a widespread dawn raid. Authorities say the arrests relate to corruption and tender rigging, but the CHP calls it an attack on elected local government. These developments come at a time when President Erdogan faces increasing political and economic pressure. Since coming to power in 2003, Erdogan has consolidated his authority, transforming Turkey's political system and centralizing power under the presidency. But his long rule is now being tested by a stagnant economy, rising inflation and growing discontent, especially among youth and urban voters. With each arrest, the street response has grown louder. Protesters say that they are not just demonstrating for İmamoğlu or any single mayor, but against what they see as the erosion of the country's democratic foundation.
We are here today for our friends who were arrested for Ekrem İmamoğlu, to defend our right to show reaction against everything that is happening. I think our judiciary system has collapsed and I want my voice to be heard.
Critics and human rights groups warn that the scale and pattern of the arrest indicate a politically driven strategy to dismantle opposition power ahead of any potential snap elections. With the streets filled with protesters, the opposition under pressure, and the economy on the brink, Turkey finds itself at a crossroad. What happens next will not only determine the future of individual politicians, but the future of the country's democratic institutions.
In a move that marks a sharp shift in the American foreign policy, the US President Donald Trump has lifted the economic sanctions on Syria. This marks a new era for the country. In the forefront of it all is the new president. This is a bet that some call risky because he's a former militant leader and now given a place in the global stage. What would the future of Syria look like? We tell you more.
President Donald Trump has lifted most US sanctions on Syria, in a move that signals the White House's full embrace of a new power in Damascus. The executive order, signed on Monday, unwinds decades of isolation against the Syrian state and marks a stunning turn in American policy towards a country scarred by 15 years of civil war. At the center of this shift is a new face, President Ahmed al-Shara. Once a rebel leader, al-Shara led the fight to oust Bashar al-Assad, a dictator who ruled with an iron fist and left millions displaced. Now, al-Shara, with past links to al-Qaeda, is being courted by Washington as a partner for peace. His elevation sparks deep concerns among Western officials, but President Trump has taken a different track. After meeting al-Shara in Riyadh in May, Trump called him young, tough, and a man who deserves a chance.
Likewise in Syria, which has seen so much misery and death, there is a new government that will hopefully succeed in stabilizing the country and keeping peace. That's what we want to see in Syria.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the president's move fulfills a promise that, in her words, shocked the world.
And this is, again, an action that the president promised and shocked the world with in Saudi Arabia, because he's committed to supporting a Syria that is stable, unified, and at peace with itself and its neighbors.
Sanctions will remain against Assad, now in exile in Russia, and against those linked to war crimes, drug trafficking, and terrorism. But this is far from a blank check. Trump's Syria envoy, Thomas J. Barrack Jr., said the US will not dictate Syria's system of governance, but warned that the door could close if terrorism returns. The order also directs Secretary of State Marco Rubio to review the Caesar Act, a 2019 law imposing sanctions on Syria over human rights abuses. A repeal is now on the table. On the ground, the impact is already being felt. According to the UNHCR, over 2 million people have returned to their areas of origin, a total that includes 1.5 million internally displaced people and about 600,000 from Lebanon, Turkey, and Jordan.
I left Syria in 2015 and lived for 10 years in Turkey in Mersin City. Syria has been liberated. We returned to our country like any expat who would return to their country. Their country should come first, of course. We settled our affairs, brought our work to an end, and we are heading towards a new job, God willing.
The UN says many returns are not driven by hope, but by growing pressure in host countries. In Europe, where nearly 1 million Syrians found refuge, few are returning, though countries like Denmark have begun revoking protections, claiming some areas of Syria are now safe. But the question many are asking is this: can a post-war Syria really be rebuilt by a man who once had links with Al-Qaeda? Trump's bet is yes, and the stakes are global. A stable Syria could reduce migration flows, undercut Iranian influence, open lucrative markets for reconstruction, and, in Trump's view, put an end to a long, costly chapter for the United States. But critics see a dangerous precedent, a rush to legitimize a wartime actor without guarantees on democracy or human rights. In Damascus, the celebration has already begun. Syria's new foreign minister called the executive order a historic turning point, claiming it clears the path for rebuilding trade and global recognition. But peace and trust are harder to sanction into existence. As flags are raised and borders open, Syria's future remains uncertain.
We're still in Syria and now going to one of Syria's oldest, grandest cities in history, Aleppo. Aleppo is a city of some 6 million residents, shaken by a decade of war and an earthquake. Hopes are now stirring after lifting the sanctions. The hopes and the efforts for rebuilding, reconstructing, recycling, and removing the rubble. In the next report, we take you to Aleppo, Syria. That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup. always bringing you the most recent updates, news, and ground reports from the world's most volatile region. I am your host, Radi Francis, signing off from Beirut, Lebanon. For more global news, keep on watching WION World is One.
No room for human error at Wimbledon this year. The second Indian in space hitches a ride in a capsule called Grace. Secure your phone, do your best. There's some pretty malicious stuff out there. Malware and viruses will put it to the test.
Whatever you do, don't confide in chat. It's not your therapist, just an AI quack. With me, Nikita Singh, only on WION World is One at these times.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at yowon.com.
On Inside South Asia this week, Dalai Lama has announced he will be reincarnated, ending speculation on the matter. The Tibet-China flashpoint flares up again. 1 year of Bangladesh student protest, we reflect on the uprising that changed the country's political scenario. Torrential rains and floods wreak havoc across South Asia. All this and much more at these times.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION